Drew, welcome. Always a pleasure. How are you today, buddy? Okay?
Good, Chris. Doing well, man. As I say frequently, hanging in there, which is the phrase of 2020, right?
And the correct one at that. Well done. All right, the Rockies, lots of questions. I had your manager on a couple days ago. He was hopeful that Arenado would be their third baseman on opening day. I don't know who's going to take that money, maybe the Dodgers, but let's do him first. Your thoughts on Arenado's status here as we head to January. What do you see?
Yeah, the way I answered this, I kind of have to look back. You and I had a conversation. I got this question quite a bit on talk shows and just around town a year ago, and people said, do you think Nolan will be with the Rockies on opening day? And of course, that was pre-COVID. And I said, I do. I said, there are rumors and these things happen, but I think he'll be a Rocky. And he was. The way I answer it now is that it would not surprise me at all if he were not a Rocky to begin 2021. I don't know anything. I'm just, kind of reading the tea leaves. Obviously, the entire environment worldwide, but specific to baseball, has changed considerably. The owners obviously lost a great deal of money last year, and there's uncertainty this year. So I would say there is a much greater possibility that he is not with the Rockies to begin 2021. But if in fact he is, again, that wouldn't surprise me. But as I said, I would be less shocked now than I would have been a year ago.
All right, if he does move, is it because the Rockies want to get out from under that $198 million, or is it the fact that they know Arenado really is hardest somewhere else, or is it a combination of both?
The best I could answer that would be guessing, and I would assume it would be, maybe some sort of combination of both, even though he was raised a Rocky and he's become a superstar in a Rockies uniform. And Dick Monfort has always been very, very loyal to guys that have risen through the ranks and become star-level players, and he's always tried to compensate them and keep them, and he did that with Nolan. But I would imagine at some point in time, if there is a great degree of unhappiness, reportedly, then you may think about moving on. And I think you couple that with the economic situation and also the desire to try to find a way to improve, because the Rockies are looking up, as everybody is, at the Dodgers. They're now looking up at the Padres, and you have to find a way to be able to compete. And interestingly, Chris, the biggest problem with the Rockies a year ago, in addition to their bullpen, was their offense, not their rotation, which always is an assumption with the Rockies.
That's a good point. We'll get to that in a sec. All right, how about Story? Bud thought that maybe they could work out a deal long term and Trevor would remain a Rocky. Now, we went through this process with Arenado, and now a couple years later, maybe he leaves. You don't want to do the same thing with him, and he's going to cost plenty. A lot of shortstops on the market after next year, too. What's the status report on your shortstop as we speak?
I'll fall back on something I said a moment ago. Again, Dick Monfort has always been very loyal, and he loves Trevor Story. The town naturally loves Trevor Story, as they do Nolan Arenado. I mean, Trevor Story is one of the great talents in baseball, not only because he hits the ball over the wall, he's a great defender. He's also one of, and it kind of gets lost sometimes, he's one of the fastest players in baseball. He truly is, in a game that doesn't value maybe the stolen bases they once did, he truly is a 30-30 guy, that type of player every year. Now, having said that, again, given the economic circumstances, I could see the Rockies maybe moving on from Nolan, trying to, get out from under some of the money owed and giving that to Trevor, because, he is a homegrown guy who's a great talent. He's in his age 28 season. I don't think the Rockies are going to want to watch both of those guys move on. And as you said, he's going to be a free agent at the end of 2021. So it's going to be an interesting several weeks here to see, what the whole industry does, but specific to the Rockies, what they do surrounding those two players. They're the two best players on this team.
Interesting thought. Yeah, maybe they do keep him and let Arenado go use that money to help Trevor stay. That's fair. How about the pitching? Listen, Marquez obviously got big stuff, and we know Freeland's very good, bounced back after a so-so bad sophomore year. He got sent down to the minor leagues. They do have pretty good starting pitching, which, as you said, is rare for that altitude. The problem is that starting pitching in Denver never can be consistent on a year-to-year basis because of what we're dealing with in that city as far as the atmosphere is concerned. Do you feel that the Rockies have the makings of somewhat of a reliable staff that they can count on for the next 3 to 5 years? What's your take on that?
Well, 5 years, as you know, you've been in this a long time, Chris. I don't care if it's the Rockies and altitude, which is the greatest challenge in baseball, or a sea level team. 5 years out is a long period because I like to say, there's 3 guarantees in life: death, taxes, and pitchers get hurt. But if taking the shorter term view of this, I like their rotation, and I think legitimately you can count on, especially near the top, very good outings. Marcus is a terrific talent. He'd be a household name if he didn't pitch in Colorado. Kyle Freeland had a wonderful bounce back year. So he was really good last year. He was 4th in the Cy Young 2 years ago, and he had that hiccup year. The great story about last year, one of the additional great stories in their rotation, was Antonio Senzatella, who used to be a guy that had a plus fastball but struggled to spin the baseball. He really made great strides in his slider curveball combination. So those 3 up front, with the return of John Gray, who was hurt most of last year, and that's a really solid, very good rotation. There are a lot of teams that like to trade places with the Rockies in terms of those 4 arms. And that, as we know, the sport's always been about pitching. It makes you feel, as Buddy told you, that you can contend if you can clean some things up in the bullpen and add to the offense somehow, or have some of those young players that didn't perform that well last year step forward. I know it's a lot of ifs, but that's, I think, what you're hearing from Buddy, certainly.
All right, last thing, Drew, and how come they didn't hit? I mean, I can understand struggling on the road because that's kind of par for the course. It's tricky for that franchise on the road offensively, but they didn't hit at home either. How come?
Great question. Listen, Nolan, for whatever reason, I think the shoulder, he didn't make it public until very late, but he hurt it early in the season. He wasn't himself. So, one of the great hitters in the game in the middle of your order was not who he normally is. I thought Story was very solid. Charlie Blackmon got off to an unbelievable start. He cooled off. You're not going to hit 500 over 60 games like he was through the first 15, 18 games of the year. But they need contributions from other guys. Daniel Murphy started out nicely. He's no longer a Rocky. He didn't hit. There was an expectation naturally that he's going to be in the center of things. And then some of the younger guys, you wanted to see them take a nice step forward, and they didn't. They have talent with the Hilliards and the Hampsons of the world. At some point, Brendan Rodgers is going to have to, have an elongated opportunity and hopefully come through, who was one of the better prospects in baseball the last few years. But the reason they didn't hit is Nolan was down, and outside of Story and Blackmon early, nobody else stepped forward really at all. And so after the first few guys in the lineup, Raimel Tapia had a nice year. After that, it was slim pickings, and they didn't hit home runs. They didn't slug. They struck out at a really high rate. Wasn't a good combination.
You see, they should be better there, but a lot of interesting questions for the Rockies between now and when opening day arrives. Well done, Drew. Thanks, always. Appreciate it. Keep it up.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Happy holidays, brother.